So here are these next two pictures. All right, the shapes to the right. If I asked you to come forward and draw a triangle, most of you would probably draw something that looks like the top picture. By the very definition, triangle, it has 3 angles to it, so we at least know that much just by the name. Now, if you ask someone in preschool to do that, or pre-preschool, and they did the bottom shape, you'd kind of, oh, well, that's a good try, let's work on that, you know. You might patronize them a little bit. But if someone who's 40 years old draws that square, when you ask them to draw a triangle, we have to ask why. You see, by the very nature, triangle, that's objective truth. We know it. People would identify that across the board. But what happens is some come forward and they say, no, that bottom figure, that's my triangle. That's the way I want to make it. And either we're patronizing to them and we say, okay, that's good. We recommend that they see somebody, or we think they're an artist. And we say, oh, they can think out of the box. Isn't that amazing how they can do that? But when you live your life that way, that's a different creature. And that's what we are doing. We are drawing a square and we're saying, that's my triangle. You know, I'm different. That's my triangle. This is how I want to live. And so what happens is, if most people, or a majority of people, or a lot of people agree, okay, that's going to be a triangle now, let's vote on it and make it happen, and now all of a sudden it becomes law. There is an objective truth. We're not stupid. We look at that, we know it's a triangle, and that the bottom one is a square. But some forces in this world would have us believe otherwise. And they are the same forces who say, it's all about me, I should be able to have what I want. For example, people often have dreams about flying. It's standard. Ask any psychiatrist or psychologist. People have dreams about flying, and it's wonderful if you've ever done it. Sometimes you roll out of bed, then not so good. But you know, as long as you stay on the bed, it's fine. It's a wonderful thing. I'd love to be able to fly without a plane, without wings, or anything else. So let's all vote on it right now. And if a majority of us think that that should be, let's make it a law. We should be able to fly without wings. Now, who wants to go up to that steeple first and jump off and try the wings? I mean, come on, we all voted on it. Therefore, it should be a law. Or maybe breathing underwater. I like scuba diving. I'd love to be able to take my regulator off when I'm 96 feet down and just breathe the water. So if enough of us think that's good, and we should be able to do that, even though it's against our nature, even though we weren't made that way, then let's vote on it. And if we say it's okay, then let's do it. But I'm not going to be the first to take off my regulator at 96 feet. You see, we are created according to a law, a universal law and a natural law. Simply said, the theology of God is on our bodies. We know we're supposed to smell with our nose, okay? We get the point. There's certain things that are so obvious, but when it comes to the appetites, not so. That's where we get down the slippery slope. And this is where the serpent sneaks in and says, who says you can't live that way? Who says? Try it and see if it doesn't taste better than the other way. And that's how we fall into his trap. So Satan is given 2 names in Scripture. The first is diabolos. Diabolos means to throw across, like to throw in the path, to throw in front of. It's the guy dangling the carrot before the donkey, essentially. And that's how we know the devil most often. The second name given to him is the accuser, Satan. And that's a little more subtle. And so I want to talk about a few ways that the tempter works first, the diabolos. And I want to use it in reflecting on the gospel for today. You notice the first reading from the prophet Nahum, and I think he makes a wonderful analogy here. He says, The locust spreads its wings and flies away. Now, by the way, these people hated the locusts because they decimated crops. It's not like you had one locust as a pet, and that's a nice one. They travel in swarms, and they just decimate the crops. Your princes are like grasshoppers, your scribes like clouds of locusts, settling on the fences in a day of cold. When the sun rises, they fly away. No one knows where they are. In the gospel, and then he departed from him until an opportune time. Nobody knows where they go. And so the first temptation here of Christ, so the diabolos, and I think this first temptation could be translated or interpreted for us as it's all about me generation. Now, we've begun to name generations, and this is Generation X, and this is the baby boomers, and this is the I think all of them are, it's the all about me generation, really. I mean, we really do. And people tell us to focus on the self. Do what's best for yourself. Help yourself. Go to the buffet. Don't limit yourself. And everything else that goes with it. And so this first temptation, to turn stones to bread, what's sinful about that? Why wouldn't Jesus just do it? I mean, imagine if you could turn stones into bread in the desert, you could feed a nation. But he did not do it. He did not allow the power of God working through him to do this miracle for himself. There's nothing wrong with turning stones into bread, but this would have been the only miracle Jesus ever would have done for himself. Now, how does this apply to us? Because the devil tempts us the same way he tempted the Lord. Can you imagine the audacity to tempt God? And yet he did it. Would he who had the audacity to tempt God stop at us? No way. He's much more clever. He's been around for millions and billions of years. Knows everything about us. Knows all the languages. Very clever. So if we're talking about this first temptation being about me and what I can do to serve myself, and we look at these issues that we deal with in the church, I imagine the temptation would come out something like this. For instance, in the case of an unwanted pregnancy. You don't deserve this. You're such a good person. You just made a bad choice. You don't deserve this. What are your parents going to think of you? What will your friends think of you? Do you think your boyfriend is actually going to stay with you? Just do this. It's better for everyone. You're thinking about college. You're going to do something good with your life. Don't let this stop you. You'll never go back. Go ahead, and you're just doing this one time. You're not going to make a habit of it. You've never done this before. Go ahead and terminate the pregnancy. How slick is that? How smooth? It almost sounds as if he cares, if he could care. It almost sounds as if he loves, if the possibility even existed. When we talk about same-sex unions, and this is especially big among high school students, because they really do. High school students have a great sense of justice. They really do. They want everything to be fair for everyone. And part of the reason is they're going through life changes and they're very insecure and life isn't fair for them. So they want it fair for everyone. For a civil union, you didn't ask for this. You know, you were born like this. It's biological. There's nothing you could help. If God wanted to change that, he would change you. You have a right to be happy. You have a right to be married like anyone else and all the benefits that go with it. Nobody else cares about you. You need to take care of yourself. Don't you want to find happiness? Don't you want to be with this person with whom you are in love? Even with contraception. God made sex enjoyable. He wants you to enjoy it. He doesn't want you to be inhibited. He gives you this great gift, and you're not ready to be a parent. God knows you're not ready. He wants you to use your mind He wants you to use science in order to make these good decisions. So no, you're not sinning. You're doing what's smart. And in the end, you'll be thankful that you did, because your life won't be inconvenienced by an unwanted pregnancy, or God forbid, some kind of sexually transmitted disease. You should do this. This is good for you, medically and psychologically. Euthanasia. You love her so much, and she's in such pain, and she's so depressed, and she's lonely. And she trusts you. She trusts you more than all the others. Give her what she really wants. Allow her to end this suffering, and you will be giving her the gift that no one else can give. Do this for her. And it is a sacrifice, but love is a sacrifice. Can you imagine him speaking of that which he does not understand and can never do, in order to get us to sin? What makes us think for a minute that in the last hours of her life, she might change her life in a way that could save her soul? And we would rob her of that? Even with capital punishment, he deserves what he's getting. He knew what the punishment was. He murdered those people. And so what if they're not exactly sure that he's guilty of this, or maybe there's some evidence tampering or whatever else? He would have done it himself anyway. He would be guilty of something else. Let's just rid the world of some more trash. Why don't we do this? You would be doing the world a favor. Don't let these criminals go on unfettered. Punish them for what they've done. They're never going to change their life. Don't think it for a moment. With pornography, which, by the way, is an epidemic in this country and only getting worse. Epidemic in this country and across the world. You're not hurting anybody. You're in the safety of your own home. They're just pictures or they're just videos. At least you're not cheating on your wife or your husband. I mean, this is all contained right here. Nobody's going to get hurt. And even with our children, you know, your son or daughter's going to see it at some time. Shouldn't it be you that introduces them to that? I mean, shouldn't you be the one to kind of say, okay, you're going to run into this at some time. I know it's not the best stuff. Or even the movies. I mean, you do want to watch movies with your children, right? And so maybe it's a little more mature. Maybe there's really bad language, or the violence is bad, or there's sexual stuff. But, you know, that won't have an effect on them as long as you're there to explain that.